The name of the story is Outlier because this is not the run of the mill cookie cutter stuff that you always hear about coaching and the best way to coach and the best way to develop players. I'm not saying that I'm always right, but what I am saying is you're probably not going to hear this from anybody else. This is my completely unique view over 30 plus years of coaching. And this is how I see player development, and this is how I see coaching. So, welcome to the story of player development, and welcome to the story of Outlier. When we talk about player development, it starts in the streets, it starts at home in your backyard. It starts very simple, a player and their relationship with the ball. We've heard this story time and time again. And Malcolm Gladwell writes about this is 10,000 hour rule, right? In order to become an expert, you have to have a minimum of 10,000 hours in what you want to do. We're going to be crap. Street soccer is critical for anybody's development. So you see Matt Ozil there. He developed his skill sets in a cage, and it's a concrete floor. You're looking at a metal cage that goes around a fence. Ball can't go out of bounds. And his story was very simple. 4 or 5 hours a day, every day, Matt Ozil played against his older brother and his friends who were 2, 3 years older than him. And there was no time on the ball. They were faster, they were stronger than him. He had to make decisions very, very quickly. And he credits that for his vision, his technique, his ability to play penetrating passes to get rid of the ball. And he said that it was directly transferable and responsible for creating the player that Matt Ozil became was the foundation of that cage soccer. You see the lower left, beach soccer. You could talk about Ronaldinho would say, nobody at Barcelona understands the touches on the ball I take because I learned those touches on the beach, even though you can't see them in the 11-a-side game. I feel them. That's where I developed them. That top left-hand corner, I can remember talking to a guy who was coaching at PSV and later at Arsenal. He would say there was 3 courts where he grew up on the street. The third court was for the lower level players, medium court, and then the high level players were on the first court. He says there was no coaches, there was no parents. The street decided what court you were on. And as you develop, the players on the second court would say, hey, this kid's getting better. I'm going to take him. And you would get picked for the second court. If you develop to the first court, they would see that and they would pick you for the first court, right? That's street soccer at its best. That's a competitive atmosphere. That's first, second, third. It's almost like promotion and relegation, right? All handled on the street by the kids. That lower right-hand corner, that's called the Proving Grounds. It's a place in South London where basically the courts are open 24 hours a day, and it's like these small-sided areas, small-sided courts, and some of the top scouts from around the country come. There's a stat saying that 14% of all English players were developed in the Proving Grounds. I mean, it's similar to the book Bounce, where Reading, England, where most of the top, whatever you call that, table tennis players developed on that one street with that one coach in that 24-hour garage with the best players all meeting there 24 hours a day. Everybody had a key. It was accessible. You know, Great story. Sporting Lisbon, every day in the afternoon, they gave the kids an hour and a half or 2 hours just to go with no coach to share information, share techniques, show each other what they know. That's free time without a coach, and that's peer teaching, which is really, really important and really big. That top picture right there is a club in Norway whose coach on the field would give them time and say, hey, these are the things, if you do something really well, I want you to find somebody on this team and I want you to teach them how you do it. I mean, my own personal experience is I had some great experiences of players teaching me. Even through college, they would take me and say, hey, listen, this is how I do this. I would ask questions. They would show me and I would learn. I was never opposed to that. I love that. I love learning what kids did really well, and peer teaching is a very, very, very important part of player development. So you could see there's no coach involved here. Again, let me repeat that. There is no coach involved. When I take my players, at the college level, and the kids come from Brazil. Some really interesting stories about player development. The kids from Japan, yes, there is no street soccer in Japan, but they're technically unbelievable. They're playing 3 hours a day, 90 minutes in decision-making team environments, and 90 minutes technical training. 3 hours a day, 7 days a week. And believe me that the results show. When you look at a kid from Brazil, they said, Coach, at 5 years old, we're on the street. It's the only place that's safe in our neighborhood. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have iPads. We played 5 to 6 hours a day, every single day, from 5 years old until 14 years old. At 14 years old, you can go to a pro club, you could try out. And that's when we went to the pro clubs. But that's 14,000 hours. Again, let me repeat that: 14,000 hours of street ball against good players in a culture that was a soccer football culture. They saw it on TV. Everybody wore the shirts. Their uncles played, their dads played, their mothers played. And look at that: 14,000 hours. That you cannot replace that. There is no coach who could replace that. And there's a lot of reasons why. I'm going to get into those reasons why. But this is the cornerstone of player development. Now, each environment is different. Damian Duff would work 20 hours a week outside of his academy training by himself or with a friend, technically training, getting his skill set up. I've known other players who do the same thing because they didn't have access to the street soccer. Not every environment has access to street soccer. So that's when there's a ball, that's when there's a wall, that's when there's technical training. All that stuff is very, very important. And this is all part of the story of player development. I want you to understand that players will develop without a coach. Very important point. We think that you need to be coached. Players will develop without a coach. If the environment is right, again, players will develop on their own. I'm not saying that coaching can't help in development, but let's not be misguided. Players will develop if they're in the right environments. Donor sports, because beach soccer, cage soccer, futsal, these are what we would call donor sports. It is not the 11v11 game. It is not. But the skill sets are transferable to the 11v11 game, and the skill sets are unique. I'll give you an example here: box lacrosse. Everyone says it's played in a hockey rink with smaller goals. If you watch a regular college lacrosse, pro lacrosse game, the coaches always say, you don't even have to tell me. I could see by the unique skill sets that were developed in box lacrosse who played box lacrosse. Arena football, this changed play calling in the NFL. It changed the routes, and it developed quarterbacks. Kurt Warner for the Rams. Listen, this is all about, you don't have the time, you don't have the space. The defensive line is all over you. So you have to have these short patterns and these really quick releases by the quarterbacks. It changes. Now, we're going to talk about academic theory eventually. It changes perception of the players, it changes visual search, and it changes action, all of which are transferable to the regular American football game, right? It's a donor sport. Very, very important. And this is one thing people forget. Technique is not something that, hey, I'm going to set up cones and I'm going to show you a Cruyff turn. I don't know. That's a movement pattern. That's whatever it is. That's not actually the skill. That's not the skill. Is adapting technique to fit the situation, to find a solution. It's the when, the where, the how, and the adaptation. That's what skill acquisition is. That's what skill is. I'm sorry. Skill is being able to adapt in the moment. It's not carrying out some choreographed technical pattern or technical skill. Listen, here's the big thing about technique that people don't always realize. Technique can emerge from these unique environments. If you're playing on a bumpy field, you're going to have to take up different body positions to control the ball. That relationship between the athlete and the environment is where the skill develops. It's not shown from a coach. The coach is not Jesus in a sweatsuit saying, this is what you need to do. This is how you correct your body position. No, this is a self-organized feedback loop where the athlete is adjusting to the environment, which is bringing and developing a new set of technical skills. And that could be the environment can create technical skills, it could create tactical skills. This doesn't have to be, I'm going to blow the whistle and you're going to dribble in between cones and actually learn something. This is a major point. Take a look at this video real quick. Just take a look. I know there's a lot of words in here. You know, no repetition is ever the same, right? So I just talked about you don't practice a Cruyff turn and think that that's actually going to translate to the real game. Why is no repetition the same? Because look at the field. It's crazy, right? The variability, the different body positions, they're constantly adjusting. When the ball goes out to a wide part of the field is totally different. This was actually video footage that was shot by a player of mine from Ghana when he went back and visited Ghana. This is probably about 2 years old, this video. But listen, most people would look at this and say, oh man, you know, what a field. I'd rather play on turf. No, I'd rather kids play on this field. The skill sets that are developed on this field are incredible compared to just playing on turf. Is the coach the source of knowledge, or is the environment the source of knowledge? For me, it's that interaction between the player and the environment, which is the true teacher. It is the process, right? So as you train in all these environments, is that really what brings upon player development? Or is it a coach coming to every training session and saying, oh, this is what I see, this is what I want to fix. I have to fix something because I'm the coach, I'm the expert, I see this, I'm going to prescribe the solution, and I'm going to make a training session just so you guys can improve. I say it's way more important, the process, which means the environment. It's about the environment. It is not about the coach. Listen, in every single training session, this is massive. Can each and every player get what they individually need out of the training session? Or is this a training session designed for one player, for two players, for a group of players, where some kids don't need this at all and they don't get anything out of the session? But because we are fixated that the coach is the source of knowledge, that the coach is the teacher, that the coach is the fixer, that the coach can come with pre-planned coaching points and objectives that he or she wants to insert over the whole group, based on what? Is the whole better than the parts? The whole is always better. The whole, for me, allows players to get what they need out of every training session. I'll explain more about that. But let's just take a quick example of, say, Javinko, right? I remember being at a talk of one of the Toronto FC staff members was giving the talk. And in the talk, they talked about 17 attacking principles of play. Here's Javinko. He doesn't speak English. He speaks only Italian. He comes in. He's the best player on the team. He might be the best player. He probably was in the entire MLS at the time. He's killing it. Doesn't speak English. Do you really think that Javinko knows even one of those attacking principles of play of Toronto FC's 17 attacking principles of play? Absolutely not. How did Javinko develop? I guarantee you he developed in street soccer. Guarantee you. He is not accessing prior memories of, hey, attacking principle number 15 says I should do this, and this is important for Toronto FC. So I'm going to go A plus B equals action C. Never. It's not what happens. I'm going to show you that in the academic theory, but this game is about two things: exploiting space and time and shutting down space and time. That's all it is. Javinko is in that current feedback loop. And we're going to continue to talk about academic theory soon. And what does all that mean? It basically means the environment has all the information that Javinko needs. He doesn't need 17 attacking principles of play. Verbal communication from a coach means almost nothing. Let me say that again. Verbal communication from a coach means almost nothing. Sometimes, yes, there's some meaning to it. Most of the time, there's nothing. You learn by experiencing. You don't learn by somebody talking in your ear about the experiences that you're going to have or the ones that you did have. It just doesn't make any sense. This game comes down to two things. When you have the ball, can you exploit time and space to score a goal? When you don't have the ball, can you shut down time and space to regain the ball and stop the opponent from scoring? That's it. Those are the only two principles in the game for me. We can talk, oh, but coach, how about attacking width? How about depth? How about mobility? How about creativity? No. Some players need 20 yards of depth or width to keep the ball. Some teams need 30 yards of width. Some teams need 70 yards of width. Some players can operate in a tiny space and they don't need any width because they're so good on the ball they can keep the ball. The environment, and I touched on this, has everything in it for players to make great decisions. The environment has all the information. As a coach, what we can do is we can construct all different environments so players don't make the same decisions, don't create the same actions. We need to challenge the players. We need to have ever-changing environments, which requires ever-changing solutions, which requires different visual search patterns, different perception, and different action. Coaches can help guide players. Remember, guide players to what they're attuning to. This is about visual perception. Can you, once you as a coach can attune players, when I say attune, it's a fancy word for, hey, what are you looking at? What if you look over here? You've changed their perception. Changing their perception can change action. You can guide them, but you don't need, hey, I'm going to make a coaching point to every one of my players on my team. Now, listen, I know this. I have the coaching licenses, right? This is one of the requirements of a coaching license in a C license. Can you make a coaching point in 90 seconds and address every single one on your team specifically? So you spend what, 10 seconds a person, 7 seconds a person? It's crazy. What are you really going to tell all 11 people on your team individually in 90 seconds or 2 minutes? It means nothing, absolutely nothing. You can score a goal a million different ways. You can win the ball back a million different ways. Does the coach have better solutions than the players? How do you know what Messi is capable? What do you know what actions he is capable of every second of the game? You simply don't. You don't know what any player on your team is capable of in every situation, in every moment of during the game. Flexibility. Flexibility. Allow the players to come up with solutions. The game model is just a flexible membrane. You have to allow decision making. Fits into a bigger methodology, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But in short, we're so used to these coaching courses based upon how we were taught in school, where, hey, standardization and conformity, so it makes it easier to quantify and to measure a grading system. In school, hey, we're going to do all these standardized tests so we can measure you like a herd of cattle and come out with statistics to prove who's the best in your class, who's the worst in your class, who's in the middle. Hey, let's put you in these coaching courses where you can conform to the ideas that we have. Show me that you're going to conform, and then I can rate you on your conformity. Oh, listen, I'm not a big guy to talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. There's so much that you can construe with data that's not true, in my opinion. I really don't want to be rated on my coaching based upon data, which in a short term, it means nothing for me. We don't control the opposition. We don't even control all the kids on our team. It is what it is. Data is what it is. So my point is, We're so used to being told, follow this format, follow this, follow that. Well, we need to question things. We can't just sit here and follow. We need to question things. This is my lesson plan. If I'm going to do a coaching course, I need to have 10 stoppages, 90 seconds each. Two of those stoppages have to address every kid on the team in 2 minutes, which is crazy. The rest of the stoppages need to address the whole team within 90 seconds. Well, not, as a team, not as individuals. Here's my pre-planned session coaching. How can you go into a session with pre-planned coaching points? Pre-planned? That you're already looking through a construed lens. The lens is already tainted. How about you come into a training session and you simply inject in real time based upon what's occurring in front of your eyes, right? Why can't I go into a training session? Listen, my training session plans are blank. They're blank. I have field diagrams, small, medium, large. I'll draw out some exercises, sure. But there's so much flexibility and I don't have coaching points. Because I don't even have to get to those exercises. I get there and this is free flowing. That's what it is for me. I don't even have, again, coaching points. I don't have coaching points. I coach what I see in front of me and I step in very, very rarely. Listen, this isn't easy. I'm not just saying, hey, go set up and let them play. That's not what I'm saying at all. Not one bit. A top coach, in my opinion, is creating the right environments and being able to change them, give the kids variability. They're always problem solving. They're always constantly making meaningful decisions against real opposition, which is real information, which is real visual search, which is real perception, which is real actions. And again, I'm relating, my whole methodology is built on academic theory. This is a little abstract, but the reality is when you see surfers surf, are they on the beach on a surfboard practicing drills? No, because there's no information. There's no information. The board is sitting flat on the sand. What real information are they getting? Nothing. It's just like a VR simulator. The VR sometimes, there's no physical coupling to the information. So if there's no physical coupling, the learning is very, very low. So VR, 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 but unless you're coupling physical actions, the limitations are very big. So the surfer, where is the information? The information's in the wave. It's in the water. So yes, you could say, all right, listen, I'm going to ride this wave and I'm going to shift my back foot over into a position I normally wouldn't, and I'm going to learn how to ride that wave and make adjustments. That's a constraint. We learn through constraints. The constraints-led approach is so, so important. What if you change the fin on the surfboard? Instead of a small one, you got a big one now. It changes the way that the board is going to react. But the information is the wave. In soccer, the information is opposed opposition. It's real defenders. It's being able to exploit time and space. It's being able to shut down time and space. That's the real information. The question is, how real does it have to be? How game representative does it have to be to have value? Whole nother topic. Me personally, not everything has to have penetration. Not everything has to have scoring. There can be real value in learning how to keep the ball and just exploiting time and space and learning how to shut it down. There could be real value in that, in my opinion. And I'll go further into why I think that. Thomas Tuchel, right? We don't work on individual moments. I, I don't want to get too into that, but I understand what he's saying. The game is in 4 phases. He doesn't want to break up the game because the game is the whole. If you start breaking up the game into little tiny pieces, sometimes you lose the value. Now, I'll go further. If you want to have unopposed, there's only so many outcomes that can happen in unopposed. If you want to only work on one phase of the game only, you're missing the other 3 phases of the game. Eventually, you have to add them in. It's cool. You want to build them in, great, whatever you want to do. but you can't just isolate one and expect it to be the whole. It's not the whole. Listen, we can go further out where, hey, you want to dribble around cones? That's nothing. There's no information. A cone doesn't force you to change direction. It doesn't force you to come up with different solutions. You're coupling physical information, you're coupling physical actions to the information of a cone, which is stationary. How many cones, how many times do you play your team against 11 cones? Never happens, right? So my methodology is very, very simple. Well, let me not call it simple, because my constraint-led methodology is complex because I can take it from 4v4 to 11v11 through the age groups in a progressive way with a constraint based. I have possession, I have positional, I have constraints, I have exercises that lead us, which are all in the whole, in my opinion, highly game representative, from small area, medium area to large area. This is very, very important. Small area. Can you find solutions in small spaces? Hugely important. From the second my players walk on the field, it's meaningful decisions. The first second they walk on the field, can you find solutions and make meaningful decisions against opposition in small areas? Because when it comes to the 11v11 game, if your solution is to kick the ball 60 yards every single time, because you're not even used to getting in these body positions and finding this rhythm with the ball with teammates in these 7x7 little areas, how are you supposed to do it in the game? Next, medium area, right? The distance become a little bit more game-like, and it could be a little bit more game model. It doesn't have to be game model. None of this stuff has to be game model, but certain days are. I actually have a color-coded system where a blue day is non-game model. It could be game model, small, medium, large, whatever it is. I have a red day, which is a tactical day. This is exactly how we're going to play on the match on Saturday, right? Different ideas. The large area stuff is usually the more game model related stuff, right? But in all these things, positional, possession, positional is, this is the areas that you're responsible based upon your position. Possession is self-organizing. This is, where are the spaces and who's going to fill those spaces, and anyone can. So possession is more self-organizing by the team. Positional is position. Yes, you could have rotations in positions, but kids need to understand both, and they need both environments. Constrained environments can be anything, right? Everything that shifts the players, when you take certain actions away, right? That is a constraint. It can open up other actions, but you have to constantly be playing with constraints. You can't just roll a ball out and say, hey, solve the problem the way you always solve the problem. Can't do that. You have to get players out of their comfort zones and in different environments all the time if you're going to really have substantial development. Now, here's what I'm going to say. If you notice, I'm not in there coaching and coaching and coaching and coaching. The skill here is to create these environments where every player can benefit. Not one player, not two players, every player. They can get out of the training session what they individually need. 90% of the time, I'm observing. I am changing the environment based upon the current feedback loop of what I'm seeing, or I'm keeping it the same. I'll never have said, hey, this is a 15 minutes in this, 20 minutes in this, 3 minutes in this, 2-minute water break. No, no, no. Never, never, never. It's 10v5, one touch, right? They have to keep the ball under high pressure in a small area. This is a medium area possession exercise, right? It's not positional. Players are free to move where they want. Everything's one touch, so it's constrained. So it's self-organizing, it's constrained. Now it looks positional because they've organized it that way, but this is a great environment, right? Yes, there's no counter pressing when you lose the ball. Yes, there's no penetration, but they're learning to exploit space and time. Very, very important environment. Here we go. Listen, here's another thing about environments. In this day, we didn't have any space. There was nowhere to go. There was snow outside and the gym was taken. So what do? We work on small area environments in a hallway, right? Small area environment in a hallway. Real decisions, real opposition. And watch. In the video, you might not be able to tell how these environments change, but they change. That diagram on the bottom, you can see that this is the actual exercise we're doing, and you'll be able to see it change as this ball gets moved. One touch, one touch, one touch. Obviously, there's not a lot of movement because it has to be positional in a way. The game's changed now, right? The game's changed. Now we have 2+ players in yellow. They're going from corner to corner. They can only play to the same colors that are, so right now it's red. They can only play to red on the outside. They're trying to move it from corner to corner, which they did successfully there, successfully there. Now blue ball. All this is real decision making in a small area. Yes, there's going to be some drawbacks. The drawbacks are it's not the visual perception is limited to this really small area. So they're not being able to be aware what's 40, 50 yards away from them, what's cross field from it. But this is still a massively important environment. And this is one environment in my methodology. Here we go. So this is differential learning.
Half rugby balls, futsalls, we have playground balls. And I put these all in game representative trainings. You can see here, this is half a rugby ball that's used to be thrown against a wall normally. And the guys are doing 8v4, playing to goals that are elevated. They have futsals here. They're playing rondo with futsals. They have rubber playground balls, which they play. This is a ball I designed myself. I had it made overseas, a variable bounce ball. Again, this is the ball here, which is the half rugby ball. They are playing one touch, 8 versus 4, against the team in red who can score to the 2 elevated goals. If you see in the corner here, the 2 players in yellow have speed constraint handles behind their back so they can't run, and they're actually playing a possession game that's directional. In the far background there, you have a soccer tennis game, which is all one touch, which travels about 10 yards in between squares. This is called our differential learning training day. This is usually done the day before a game. The workload is very low, but it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of adapting and variability in these types of days.
Okay. See what this one brings us. So here's an example here of this is the attacking game model, right? This is a 3-2-2-3. It's 10 versus 6. You can see this. This is very tactical. This is, and we're working both sides of the field. So you could see that the other side is working the same thing. So we have a bit of a constraint when it comes to the number of players. So I had to work 32 kids on one side of the field, 32 kids on the other side of the field. So at this point, we are in the attacking organization phase, in the attacking third, working our formation. You can see how many kids are on the other side of the field as well. We will eventually go into full half field. So you're going to have a defensive organization, defensive transition, attacking organization, attacking transition. But for me, this is still coupling real information, your physical actions to real information. This is game model. They're trying to break down a low block in all the tactics that we train them. So academic theory, it is, again, I'm only giving you a very, very tiny glimpse into academic theory because we can speak for hours on academic theory, but everything I do in my methodology is directly related to academic theory. So one of the first things is when you look at a training session, is the information game-like? It's very important. If it's unopposed, it is very limited game-like. There's not variability. You don't have to change intentions because it's not game like. Dribbling around cones is not game like. It's not real information. So, does your session require players to make meaningful decisions. And again, meaningful decisions is visual search. What are they attuned to? Is it real information? That's their perception, and their perception leads to actions, right? So, do they need, so meaningful decisions is about visual search. It is about real information, coupling your physical actions to that. And in a real game, you need to adapt your intentions. Things, we call them affordances, opportunities for action, open and close. So and we could call this invitations for actions. So if there's a chance for a player to create a successful action, but that invitation for action shuts down, they have to change their intentions. This is all done in a current feedback loop. So the player is not going back into their memory and saying, hey, I remember this happened 2 weeks ago, and this is the solution. That's not how this works. Does a player need to adapt their movement solutions, right? So if you're going to adapt your intentions, often you got to adapt your movement solutions as well. Are the dynamics of what you're doing, are they real? Is the environments that you're creating, is this real to the real game? And this is important. Do your training sessions, does the environment produce real pressure and real emotions? All important things to really think about. Everyone thinks that, hey, we need more creative players. Don't constrain them. Well, the reality is that one of the things is if you give full freedom, it actually takes away from creativity. The most creative things are done when they're constrained. Yeah, it's very, very important to remember that. We can go into more academic theory about affordances, shared affordances, perceived affordances, but here's the reality. This is a very complex game. Everybody has certain abilities, and they have certain abilities for actions. In a real game, if the ball is coming in from across and I can't do a bicycle kick, I'm going to head the ball. If I could do a bicycle kick because I had that skill set, my affordances, my ability for action is bicycle kick or header. Not everybody has that affordance. So a lot of kids, they're just perceiving their perceived ability for action, which is a perceived affordance, is just a header. Well, another kid could perceive it as a bicycle kick because he had that, right? As you get more skilled, the Cruyff turn, he never did a Cruyff turn, never practiced it. It just came as a movement solution during a game without ever practicing. Those things happen too. So shared affordances, if you and I see the same thing. Hey, I see space over here, in and behind. If you make that run, we see the same space. I hit you with the through ball. It's a shared affordance. I'm not going to take you through in-depth academic theory because I have other videos that will do that. But understand this. There's two things here. There's the standard coach, and then there's academics. In order to, in my opinion, get the best information and create the best environments, the coach has to take a deep dive and make a real effort to understand academic theory. That means studying. The academic needs to put themselves on the field, and that will make them better and help them with the application of academic theory. So I'm going to leave you with these thoughts. First, do coaches need to always be teaching? Do they always need to be interjecting with pre-planned coaching points? Are the coaches the driver of player development? Or can the process of creating great environments develop players? I'm here to say the process of creating great environments is what creates and develops players. Coaches do not have to look to fix problems. It's a process, and the process is one of long-term exposure to different environments over time. I am not saying that coaches cannot jump into training sessions and teach. They can teach detail. However, they can teach tactics. But what I'm trying to say is that is a very, very, very small part of development. The major part of development is creating the right environments for players to experience the game, to problem solve, to make their own decisions, as coaches are mainly guides who will jump in every once in a while with their expert knowledge and their eye to give really valuable information. But that is a tiny part. Don't worry about fixing things all the time. Fixing does not have to be how we coach. Think about a longer process and just create great environments, adapt the environments, and continue on. You are not the only beacon of knowledge. The knowledge really comes from manipulating the environments. Hope you enjoyed it.